So today I'm doing a cooking video. I'm showing you how to make seafood fettuccine with salad and garlic bread. And it is a Valentine's Day recipe for you guys, so if you want to make it for your partner or for your family or your best friend or whoever you're spending Valentine's Day with, I'm teaching you how to do this. As well as I've done a video on how to make Valentine's Day white chocolate caramel cupcakes with a white chocolate and cream cheese ganache. So watch that video, I'll link it somewhere up here. I hope you guys like it, and cheers, happy Valentine's Day. Alright, so we cut the mushrooms up into little tiny pieces and the onions up into little half moon circles, and the peppers, cut them really long and skinny and then chop it in half that way. And we're going to cut some basil. The trick with cutting basil is kind of like rolling a cigar. You stack it all up and put the biggest piece on the bottom, and then you roll it and use a knife that isn't serrated, because what this is going to do is prevent the bottom layers from bruising. So when you start cutting, cut as thin as possible. And my first couple cuts I might not use because they're not as pretty. And you just keep smooching your fingers back. Make sure you don't chop your finger off because that'd suck. Alright. I also want to cut a couple cherry tomatoes, and you're just going to literally chop these right in half. Just leave them like that. And they taste really nice with basil because basil brings out the tomatoiness in tomatoes. That's why you always serve it with like pasta sauce. It's amazing. Alright, so that is our vegetables. I kind of did portion size just based on what Glenn and I generally eat. I know kind of how much we like to eat, and I guess I did half a pepper, maybe a third of an onion, 3 mushrooms, however many cherry tomatoes that was, and just a little handful of basil. So you guys can also modify it to what you want to cook. Okay, so I'm using 3 types of fish today. I'm using prawns, scallops, or scallops as Glenn says, and salmon. So I got a little piece of salmon and I've just cut it into tiny little bite-sized chunks. There's no bones or anything, so that's awesome. And then my prawns are already peeled and nice, and I cut my scallops into, depending on how big it was, I probably cut almost all of them into thirds, so they're just little chunks like that. And so what we're going to do is put this in the frying pan, cook all these up with a bit of oil and garlic, and then we will eventually add it to our sauce. Okay, so I have some oil and some garlic simmering in this pan. I'm going to put the salmon in first. And I've used canola oil so that it doesn't change temperatures. If you use olive oil, it can change temperatures and it will spit, and canola oil doesn't spit as much, which is awesome, because it's no fun having to dodge oil. So I have this spread around the pan, and it's just on a medium to high setting. I can actually probably turn it up a little bit. And I feel that I'm going to leave the salmon in for just a couple more seconds than the other fish, just because I feel that salmon doesn't cook as fast. I don't know, maybe that's just me. Alright, now I'm going to add my prawns. Now the trick with fish is that you don't want to overdo it because it will become really gummy, and that's not fun when it's chewy and fishy. Try and fit it all in on the bottom of the pan. I just have a small little element under this pan, so it's not necessarily heating up the whole sides of the pan, so I'm going to have to squish everything around. And I'm going to add the scallops over on this side. I have about a quarter cup of oil with some more garlic. I have probably 2 tablespoons of garlic in this. And I'm heating it up, and I'm putting just a little bit of butter in it. And this is going to be our sauce. I'm making like a garlic Cajun cream. It's really yummy with seafood. Chop this butter up so that it melts faster. And don't forget to keep stirring your fish when you do need to. I'm going to try and do a little bit of a flip with the salmon. So now our sauce is just simmering. We're cooking the garlic, which is awesome. I'm going to do this for probably 2 minutes. Make sure that your garlic doesn't get really brown though. If it does, you can just pick it up off of the heat and just do that. Keep on stirring though if you can. Now that this sauce has been cooking for about a minute and a half, 2 minutes, I'm going to take, I have flour mixed with water and I'm going to make it into a roux. So the best way to do this is to mix the flour with water first instead of putting the flour directly into your sauce, because then it will reduce like lumps and nobody likes a lumpy sauce. So I'm going to slowly pour this in here, and mine's a little bit too hot, so I'm going to take it off and just wait for it to cool down and then pour it in. Sometimes your burners may be a little bit tricky with keeping consistent heat, but that's okay. So I'm going to pour that mixture in. I probably used about 4 tablespoons of the flour. And now I'm going to mix in 2 cups, 1 cup of whipping cream and 1 cup of regular milk, and put that back on the heat. Now the easiest way to do this is to use a whisk. And I am taking my fish off because it is ready. So with this sauce, you're just going to consistently whisk it until all your little lumps are out. That flour is just going to thicken it right up, which is awesome. I wouldn't necessarily boil your sauce, although you could bring it to just before a boil, just so like it's gently bubbling or simmering. But you see it's getting a lot smoother. And we will just continually make sure to stir that. Don't put it on a high setting, because if the cream burns, then your sauce is messed up and it will not taste good, let me assure you. So make sure you do keep stirring and checking it and checking it and checking it. So then I'm just going to take my fish and put it in this bowl for now. I have a bit excess water, which doesn't particularly matter. It's not 100% super cooked. I have it just a tad undercooked so that I can put it in the sauce. And if the sauce cooks it with its own heat, it won't overcook. But we'll just put that aside just for a minute until our sauce gets a little bit thicker. So I have washed my pan up, put a little bit more oil in it, and I'm just going to put these tomatoes in face down, just so that they have a nice little crunchy cooked edge. And they'll shrivel up a little bit, and the sweetness will release once you cook them. So I really like these tomatoes. And I'm also going to add the mushrooms. Okay, so at this point your sauce is going to be thickening up quite nicely. Continue to stir it, but you can put it on a little bit lower of a setting. And I'm going to take some ground pepper and pepper the crap out of it, because I love ground pepper. And give it a bit of a stir. I will eat pepper until the cows come home, and so will Glenn. We are pepper freaks. And I'm going to take a little bit of salt. I'm not huge on salt, so I'm only going to do a couple little grinds. And keep on stirring that in. And then with this sauce, I'm going to make it spicy, so I'm doing a Cajun seasoning. And I like things quite spicy, so I'm going to put quite a bit. This is not shaking out very well. I'm scared to do it the other way though. That's not that bad. I'm going to try that and stir it in and see what it looks like. You can kind of base it off of color. Obviously the lighter and less red your sauce is, the less spicy it's going to be. So I want mine a little bit spicier. I'll put a little bit more Cajun. I think the spiciness really complements the fish, but it's totally up to you. If you're not into spice, you don't have to really put any at all. It'd be nice, you just add maybe a little bit more garlic to make it more of a garlicky sauce. Alright, so I'll leave that for a sec and go back to our veggies. Those tomatoes are looking nice, so I'm going to flip some of them over. And the mushrooms are going to start to get brown. Come on, flip for me. This last one doesn't want to flip. Yeah. Nope. Flip these mushrooms over as well. And now that these are like semi-cooked, I'm going to add the pepper, or capsicum, or whatever you want to call it. And I'm also going to add the red onion. I heard that on a website that red onion was like Spanish onion. How crazy is that? I've never heard it called that before, but apparently it is. Alright, and we're just going to let that cook some more. I have it on kind of a medium-high heat. Alright, so our sauce is thickened and spicy and ready for the fish to go in it. If a little bit of water gets in, it doesn't really matter because it just will get evaporated out once you cook it for a little longer. And I'm going to get rid of my whisk now and just go with a normal spoon. Stir that all in. And that's still on a pretty low setting. And then go back to your vegetables and see how they're doing. They're cooking up really nice. Now you don't want to overdo your vegetables because then they'll be really, really soggy and it doesn't really taste all that good. So before you put it in the sauce, they shouldn't be completely cooked, just like how I did the fish. It wasn't completely cooked, but it was pretty darn close so that when the sauce, the heat of the sauce will finish cooking it while your water boils. They're getting pretty close to putting the sauce, so I'm going to turn it off. And just slowly add them into your sauce. Now at this point you can put your water on for your noodles. If you put a little bit of salt in your water, it's going to lower the boiling point of the water so it'll boil faster. And I'm also going to stick a lid on it. We'll just stir this into our sauce so that it can continue slowly getting all the flavors, making friends, and it'll be ready for our pasta when our pasta's ready. So remember, your sauce is on the lowest setting now. If you are of legal drinking age, you can put a little splash of wine in. I'm using red, but you're more than welcome to use white. Just do a little splash. While your noodles are boiling and your sauce is simmering, you're gonna get your garlic bread made. So I'm gonna cut the French loaf on an angle. And hopefully your knife isn't as dull as mine, because mine's pretty darn dull. And I like mine a little bit thicker, so I'm going to do it about that thick. I'm using spreadable butter because my other butter's in the freezer and it will not spread. And coat your piece of bread. And be decently generous with this because it is going to melt and seep into the actual bread because we're making like a quick garlic bread. So then I'm taking garlic that is already minced and I'm going to spread that on top of the butter. Put a lot on that one, so I'll transfer. I'm going to take a bit of ground pepper and just put it on top because I like pepper on everything. And I'm just going to use a little bit of dried basil on top just to sprinkle. You can also use oregano, but I don't have any, so I'm using basil instead. Then you're going to put it into your broiler and leave it in there on a low setting until it's nice and brown. Once your water is boiling, you're going to add your noodles. I'm using about that much, a huge handful, because I made a lot of sauce and I wanted to make a little bit extra for us to eat tomorrow. And you're just going to add your noodles in. I also used fettuccine noodles, but you can use linguine or whatever other noodle that you do prefer. But I think this meal works the best with either fettuccine or linguine. I'm also making a Caesar salad with this meal, so I'm using my favorite Caesar dressing. And I'm going to lightly drizzle it until I feel that I have enough. And I like to mix it with tongs because I find it to be pretty easy for a small salad. I will also add pepper and a little bit of Parmesan cheese to this. Okay, so we don't have napkins, so I'm using a piece of paper towel to make this cute little napkin. You fold it over to about there, flip it over, and fold and fold. And then it makes this nice little pouch where you can stick your knife and your fork or whatever cutlery you've decided to use. Okay, so I've plated the noodles and I sprayed a little bit of cooking oil on them while they're in the pan. And I'm just putting the sauce on now. And I don't know how Glenn really likes his. Do you want yours lots of sauce? Yeah? Yeah? Okay. Lots of sauce for you. So it looks and smells amazing. And here is my plate. Try and get lots of veggies and seafood on there. Yummy. And so we're gonna have leftovers, which I'm so glad for because I love having leftovers when cooking. And you're gonna take your basil, and I like putting plenty of basil on. So spread it on top. It's really nice as a garnish. And putting my 1.5 pieces of garlic bread because Glenn and I like a little bit more garlic bread than 1 piece. And let's bring it over to the table. I hope you enjoyed this video and have a very happy Valentine's Day.